Val Baxendine, and just want to talk a bit about my cycling, how I got into cycling. I wasn't a sporty person at school, and I certainly hated hockey and all those sort of games. I really wasn't a sports person at all. So I managed to have a rag of boneyard down the end of our road, and I managed to get a frame, and I built my own bike from the bits of bike from a rag. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no brakes. I had a fixed wheel. And I was at Croydon. I used to cycle out here to East Grinstead, Hedgecourt Lake, Earlswood Lakes. I remember cycling to 7 on this bike. Mother had no idea where I was, what I was doing. I was into ice skating then, and I used to go ice skating. I met this family up there at the ice rink. My father was a steward, and they took me under their wing, this family. And when I wanted a bike, the father signed up for me to get a bike on HP, which I got. Of course, I bought a girl's bike with a semi-dropped handlebars, you know, sort of thing, completely the wrong bike. Just soon after that, I got to know the Thornton Road Club boys down the road, and of course I've got a bike, because it was the wrong sort of bike, totally wrong. And it's from there that cycling lads, not in my own club but the North Paragon, gave me a bike. Les Ingman was a good rider in his day, went in the back of a bus, shortened his wheelbase, and I got his frame, so the boys between them built that bike up for me. Thornton Road Club was like my family and brought me out of my shell, and they were absolutely, I still think very fondly of the club. They even paid when I started racing, and one of the lads even drove us up to the National Road Race Championships in Ormskirk in 1958, 58, in a Lost in 7. 3 of us girls in the back of the bikes, and you couldn't see the cars. Club runs, you'd meet at 9 o'clock in the morning, you'd have Levenses, you'd have lunch, you'd have tea, you'd get home about 7:30 at night. And it was a whole day out, and you rode as a group. There was one big laugh because you chatted away, and it was in twos. It was like a coach, twos, and the front two would then go to the back, and you did this all day at a steady pace. And you could go for miles like this because it was easy in the back. You did your bit and you came back. And because there wasn't the traffic on the road, so it was really social. The riding was one big laugh. Goon show was popular at that time, and everybody took off all the goons and all the silly voices, and this was going, the club run was like one big goon show. The Thornton Road Club started to put a brick in my saddlebag. We were all at High Wycombe. I rode all the way back from High Wycombe to here with a brick in my bag, in a saddlebag. But we had a lot of fun. One bunch would meet up with another bunch, and then a bunch of... We had about 40 of us sprinting for the Purdy signs where all the traffic lights were on, and it was all over the road. And from Croydon we used to go out every Tuesday and Thursday. We'd go out Hayes Common to Sevenoaks, come from Sevenoaks right all the way through Westerham, Godstone, Redhill, and back to Croydon. 2 nights a week we'd do that, and sprint for all the place signs on the way. And I'd hang on. If I didn't hang on, then you just turn right and come back into Croydon. And then on a Wednesday night from Croydon we used to cycle up to Coulsdon, Woodmanston, and go around and up Box Hill and back down to Croydon via Beddington. And that was the training ride.
How did the Gillett come into cycling?
Ah yes, now that was when I was in the Thornton Road Club, and there was 2 brothers in the club, Gordon and Alec Robertson. Anyway, it was Alec's brother Gordon, and he was the one that suggested a Gillett. And he said if I get a Gillett, he would take me up there, 2 Gillets, and we cycled up there together and had me measured up like a suit for my bike. So it was through Gordon Robertson that I got my Gillett. It just that he knew of them and recommended them. And when it was built, Gordon came up and carried it all the way back to Croydon on his shoulder, you know, riding back with me.
That's just the frame?
Just the frame, that's all I had, that's all I could afford.
Yeah.
And then the cycling club members, in fact, again, North Paragon, Brian Newcombe in the North Paragon, he was quite good on putting the bike together for me. And then it turned out in Croydon there's lots of cycling clubs, and each club had one female rider that was quite good. And it was decided that if all us girls joined one club, we'd have a really good team. And we all joined the Apollo. So there was about 9 of us in the Apollo, all good. So it wasn't a case of which club would win the team, it was which 3 in that club. So I did time trials, because there's so few road races you could go to anyway. So time trials I rode really as a form of keeping fit and competing, ready for road races. So I suppose the highlight of my time trialling was the Bath Road 100. It was the Women's National 100-mile time trial. We got the team award in the Bath Road 100, and I think I did about a 4:44, something like that. But the beauty of that was it got you to the BAR concert, which in those days wasn't anything like it is now. It was in the Albert Hall, that absolutely filled up with rowdy cyclists, with a proper show. We had Tommy Trinder as the compere on the stage and proper acts, which was a really good evening. And then we had that year Herb Elliott presenting the prizes, so to actually go on the stage at the Albert Hall. I did 50s. I won the Addiscombe 50 one year. I did about 2:14, I think, was my fastest 50. 25, yes, 1:16. I learnt so much from these lads. Of course, a lot of them wanted to get rid of me, and I was even more determined to hang on their wheels. Road racing wise, the 29th Wheelers used to put a race on, well, they did 2 years running, they put a race on the Ashdown Forest, which of course is my training ground really, it's just down the road, with a quite hard climb up the finish, which they've used well, when they have used it, it's been a finish for the men's event as well, so it's a long climb up, which suited me. I'm quite happy with that sort of climb, just sit in and I get in a rhythm. Anyway, I won that. And we used to have an international race on Green Street Green years ago, this is before Birrell's time, with riders from abroad, so that was quite something. But at Rowley Ferris up in Wellingborough, he used to put on really good races for the women. I don't know what happened to him, but he put on these races. And Birrell was riding then, so we used to ride up their race regularly. Put on a two-day event for us. You'd win things like a pair of mud guards or a cycle lamp, or, you know, bless him, he put these races on. You didn't ride for the prize money or the prizes, you rode for the race. You try to get there by train as far as possible, but I also had no money, so I'd get myself onto the A1. There's no motorways in those days. Get myself to the A1, stop off at a transport cafe, and get lifts, ground lifts on lorries.
What was Beryl Burton like as a rider?
Strong. Beryl kept herself to herself before a race, so she wasn't one of the ones that was chatting away particularly. But then I think I would do the same. I was building up the adrenaline, preparing for the race. When you actually got into the race and started, we found, the Apollo girls, we found if we came alongside Beryl, one each side of her in the bunch, she was really wobbly and nervous. She didn't like bunch riding. She wasn't a bunch rider. And she didn't just time trial away and you couldn't keep up with her. So she was a time trialist. Not a road racer, but it's just the sheer strength of her that she won road races. Charlie used to sometimes sleep in that. They never had any money. You think of the money that's involved now. They couldn't afford digs for the two of them. Charlie used to sleep in the back of our car. When it came to road racing, my favourite and I still think it's the top women's road race rider in our day, was Joan Paul when she was in the Fountain. She wasn't a very big girl at all, and if there was a break, Joan would be in it. And if you weren't working properly, if you was too far up the front and slowing the brake down, she'd say, "Change, change!" You hear this little voice going and kept the brake going. And when it came to a finish, a bunch finish, you never saw Joan. She was a bit like Cavendish, yeah. And you just didn't see her as the bunch came along. But all the last minute, out of a sudden, she'd suddenly appear. Good tactics. Out of sight, and she'd suddenly appear, and she used to win a lot of races. Joan Paul was a brilliant road race rider.
And how was your sprinting?
I did work out. I used to train up Herne Hill track just to try and build up my sprint. Going out with the Croydon Racing Club boys, sprinting for the road race signs. I mean, never anywhere near beating them, but I'd have to keep up, so I had to sprint just to keep up with them. So I did work at it, but I never was a sprinter. There was a time when we rode, 6 of us girls rode for London team, as a London team. It was the Commonwealth Games in Cardiff. We didn't have women's cycling in that no more than they had in the Olympics, but they put a women's race on as a rehearsal for the men's road race. And we planned on one of the big climbs on this race to go on we were going to make a break. We were going flat out up, and you know what it's like when you're on a break uphill. I was right on Eve Todd's wheel. She was leading, I was second one down, feet well strapped in, glued to her back wheel. And she stopped and looked back to see how we were doing, whether we were getting away, and I went straight into a wheel because she came back at me, and that had me down, and the rest of the team were down on top of me. So I'm under a heap of cyclists.
What happened to the bike?
The bike was, I can't remember what damage, but it was badly damaged. And so
This was the Gillet.
There's a Gillet, yeah. Stan Etherden, who had then, him and Johnny Buckford had Jensen cycles, and he had a leader frame, about the same size as me. He gave me his frame. He built the bike up from, put everything onto the leader, for I raced on that after that.
So what about your time with East Grinstead Cycling Club?
Got married, moved out here, joined the East Grinstead Club. As I said, I rode with them, did all club runs, used to take all the lads out, including Richard Woodward, all the lads used to take out on rides. I did practically every job in the club except treasurer during that time, so I got very much involved. I did a lot of promoting for them, road races and time trials, so I did a lot.
How did you get into representing Britain?
By coming third in the National Road Race Championships at Ormskirk in '58, I think that was right, and then in 1959 I came third again when it was at Buxton, and that was harder, that was a very hilly ride. So 2 years running I came third in the National Road Race Championships, and that's really what put me into the selection for the Worlds. That's what did it. And then I did the Worlds in 1960 in East Germany, Leipzig.
Okay.
And that was really quite something because it was men's, women's, track, anything to do with cycling was all there, the Worlds at the same time.
Was it a good race?
No, our bikes went missing going there. We went by train and overnight on the train, and we had to go through Berlin, had the border then, and somehow through the border our bikes all went missing. And they arrived not long before the actual race, and they'd all been taken to bits and they had to be put together. But we had no mechanic, we had no masseur, there was nobody there. We had no pre-race chat or anything. We had Eileen Gray, who really fought for us girls, but she wasn't a coach or anything like that. So it's a case of sorting your bike out and getting on with it. And to my horror, on the circuit was a very steep hill, cobbled on the circuit, and on the day it poured with rain. I didn't have a big enough sprocket on the back. I couldn't get up that hill without getting out the saddle because of my gear. If I got out the saddle, the wet cobbles, the back just went from underneath me. So for me it was a disaster. And Bill Bradley lent me his back wheel, which gave me a bigger sprocket. But it wasn't running smoothly because it's that,
Yeah.
So I just had problems. I finished years, I was 18th, I think, if I remember rightly, in it, out of 46 riders. And then coming back with Saturn, I wish I could remember the guy, but he had an old van, he had wooden seats, just plank seats in the back, and we came back in that. But they did stop at a hotel on the way back. It's the same day as the race, we whisked off straight away. But they did put us up in a hotel, so we got a decent night's sleep that night. So that was that year, and then I got shortlisted again for the World Championships in the Isle of Man the next year. I was more nervous on that than I think I was East Germany. I don't know why. I just always felt that there's others just as good as me, and I really had to do well to prove that I should be there. And of course the Isle of Man's pretty hilly, it was a hilly ride. So Bill rode it. So I wasn't with the leaders for long. I got round and I coped.
But you must have seen some notable people coming along and encouraging them.
We've had, yes. Oh, Sean Yates, of course. Next he mentions me in his book, because he wrote to me when he first wanted to join the club. He was about 12, 14. Brian Phillips, who was a good rider, he wrote to me to join the club. So my first introduction to them was through me into the East Grinstead Cycling Club. So life is good.
Thank you, Val.